Hello, and welcome to episode 19 of the Teachings of Zed. I really hope that what we've offered so far in this channel has at least given you a lot to think about. For, as Zed told us at the outset, you are not put on this planet to practice blind faith, question everything. And that, of course, includes the Teachings of Zed. See, as you go along, what resonates with you, for truth has its own vibration. These universal teachings explain that what we're talking about is a process, not some quick fix, not some road to instant nirvana or instant enlightenment, as some doctrines would preach. Enlightenment is indeed the goal, but it is becoming enlightened to the total awareness that an individual higher self has gained thus far. And this obviously varies from person to person and lifetime to lifetime. Of course, the ultimate state of enlightenment is what you might say the very top of the tree of experience, of course, the destination at the ultimate end of the journey, which is the top of level 7 of the dimensions, where the being is no longer separate, but merges with the creative force itself. But along the route, there are other states of personal enlightenment, and each stage will raise us up, and each step will increase the strength of energy at our disposal. This is the pathway of movement through the dimensions of universal energy. Unfortunately, there is a tendency to try and judge someone's spiritual status at face value by the way they present themselves, or by way of intellectual knowledge or ritual or power of speech, and the emotional fervor that they generate. So when a person is seeking someone to guide them on a pathway of spiritual understanding, it's very easy to be misled by leaders with these qualities. Whereas, if you remember my account of Evie, the lady with Down syndrome, the overwhelming energy of pure love and awareness may be present within the seemingly lowliest of individuals. This is what Zed had to say on the subject back in 1987. He said, highly evolved souls do not necessarily lead good lives. They still have choice. Interesting, isn't it? So what is it that attracts followers to a person? It is their spiritual power, the strength of their energy that we might call charisma, that attracts others to them. And this is true whether that power is being used for good or for ill. Unfortunately, there are many who will follow blindly, thus sharing in the karma and accountability of their leader. Remember, if in doubt, we have a library of answers within ourselves to turn to for guidance. And what makes a person use their power in a bad way? It is self, it is ego. Even Jesus had choice. What would have happened if he had given in to self? Hitler had charisma and used the power for his own self-aggrandizement. And as a result, thousands upon thousands followed him and created the most terrible group karma as a result. The higher self is aware of the purpose and the karmic consequences of all our actions, but there is always choice. Have you done bad things in past lives or in this incarnation? Of course you have. It is self. But you have to experience the bad to appreciate the good. There are two sides of the same coin. So it's important to understand the role of the mind in controlling the energy emanating from the higher self. Taking healing as an example again, you could have a highly evolved soul with strong energy who wishes to give healing, but whose mind, maybe unconsciously, has its own agenda. Their mind's desire would then inhibit the amount of power available. But on the other hand, you could have a hesitant new healer with a lesser degree of energy available, but whose mind is full of love and compassion and open to whatever may happen, thereby allowing their flow of energy to emerge unhindered. Which one would be more effective? It's like a seesaw. Always, the mind is the controlling factor. Perhaps you can now see why the practice of meditation is central to our spiritual progress. Because it's the key that opens the door of the mind. And beyond that door, our higher self is ready and willing to step through to enrich our lives, as long as we allow it to. And here is the most important piece of information of all. There is no point in throwing yourself against the door of the mind to force it open, for it opens inwards. Just get out of the way. Okay, so as I mentioned in episode 9, the teachings explain that the child in the womb is at one with their higher self. However, the earthly mind is activated and programmed from the moment of birth, and the kind of programming the child receives will determine how open his or her mind remains. In some ancient cultures, children were removed from their family surroundings to a place where the emphasis would be on their spiritual growth. Unfortunately, this usually entailed learning belief systems and rituals that also hindered the free opening and closing of the mind to whatever wisdom already existed in the child. Sadly, such institutional learning systems still exist, where children, predominantly boys, are taught a particular form of spirituality by rote. This is one example of how religions have become moribund, stuck in the past, instead of moving and adapting to the fantastic changes that have taken place in human society since those particular dogmas were laid down, including the position of women, as I've already mentioned. For how can any religion that claims to speak for the creative energy wish to denigrate and subjugate half its creation? And how can any religion that claims to act for the God of love perpetuate the mutilation of the genitalia of innocent babies and little children? Is this truly the will of God, or irrational obedience in the name of religious tradition? Truth, love, and wisdom cannot be bound by the chains of tradition, but must be allowed and encouraged to emerge from within every individual through many kinds of pathways of belief and experience. Again, I repeat Zed's words that I said at the beginning. You are not put on this planet to practice blind faith. Question everything. The simple fact is that the universe is in motion and always has been, and we are part of that expansion. As they say in the movies, it is useless to resist. More for you to consider. Thank you for being with me again, and I hope to see you next time for episode 20. Goodbye.